Okay, next step, we're going to decide whether or not you need a SSD or a hard drive in your computer, or both. To explain, hard drive is also known as HDD, hard disk drive, and what those are they're older drives and larger capacity drives you have. They, if you've seen one before, it's probably what you've seen. Like this picture right here is a hard disk drive, the inside of one, and it's a spinning platter. It has a mirror finish on it. It has a magnetic readable coating on it, and it uses a magnetic field or whatever for electricity to read and write data to this field. Is the simplest way I can explain it. And since those are the oldest technology, they've been most refined and they have the highest capacity for the cheapest price. But they're also considerably slower than an SSD. And explain what an SSD is. It stands for a solid disk drive, solid state drive. And what that means is there's no moving parts, uh, which makes it a lot faster. It can have better lifespan and more reliability depending on how it's used, I suppose. Uh, has more durability since no moving parts if you drop your computer while it's running. And it's kind of hard with a desktop, but with a laptop, it's not going to break. Something else probably break before the SSD did. Such like that, SSDs also cost a lot more and have less capacity for what you're paying. So that's something to think about. I'm going to explain both here and tell you what you might need them for. Best case scenario is best to have both. I have both in both of my computers. Kind of in all three of my computers, but I'll explain that later. We're going to start with internal hard drives. That's your large capacity. If you want to store a lot of music, a lot of video, everything such like that, you're going to want one of these. If you just want an operating system on your computer with some programs and want to web browse and a few photos and stuff like that, then the SSD is probably a better option. But I'm going to explain this first. Like you have hard drives here, you have different brands. Again, like I go for reviews. It seems to me I'm tiny bit biased towards Western Digital, but I have a Samsung drive, a Western Digital drive, and a Seagate drive, and I've had no problems with many of them. So I just feel because I have Western Digital Raptors, one of the fastest mechanical hard drives you can get. Uh, I just feel as though they're higher quality and like will last longer, I suppose. But when they first came out, they were also really expensive. I think they use like enterprise class parts or something in them, so they're higher quality parts, so they won't have a much less chance of dying, which is why they cost so much. Anyways, let's see what traditional Seagate, Hewlett Packard, Lenovo, and all these random um, brands or drives. You have to decide what size you need in a drive. Probably is the best first option. Any new computer is going to have SATA, SATA 6 or SATA 3. SATA 3 is backwards compatible with SATA 6, so that's just an FYI. The higher the RPM, the faster, but I don't think there's actually a consumer drive that uses 15,000. I mean, maybe it does. It says internal enterprise class, but trust me, if you're spending $400 on this drive, you might as well spend $400 on the SSD because it's going to be much faster than this drive still. So I wouldn't even look into getting these 15K drives because they're way overpriced for what you're getting, really. 10K drives, on the other hand, the Velociraptor here is a very fast drive. If you want a fast game drive, typically for media, you don't need this. You one of the slowest hard drives you can buy. It was perfectly fine. You could stream 1080p just fine. File transfers will obviously be a little bit slower, but I mean, it's not going to impact anything you're going to use that drive for, unless you're like loading programs from it. That's why Velociraptor, like this drive right here, I have the older Raptor drives in my computer, which are slower than this. And these can be really fast if you want a dedicated game drive to, and then an SSD, and then that. Explain what I have in my computer. I have an SSD for my programs and my operating system, so my computer boots up really quick, which is a smaller 120 gig SSD. which holds everything perfectly for programs and the operating system. Then what I have next are two older 150 gigabyte Raptors rated, so it's technically kind of like one 300 gigabyte drive, kind of like this one right here. But I think it should be faster than this one since it's rated, but it's has a chance of losing my data, to say the least. And then I have a terabyte drive, a fairly kind of fast one. I kind of load some programs on, not much. Um, and I have a lot of media on it, like my music videos and stuff. I put onto that one. So I have a total of 4 hard drives on my computer. So my recommendation, if you really want fast game load times, or if you're video editing, yes, if you are heavy duty video editing, a Velociraptor could be a better option. It costs more, yes, but trust me, they are noticeably faster than a normal drive. If 300 gigs a game, if you're new to a gaming PC gaming, 300 gigs will last you a long time. This drive would be very outdated probably by the time you get that many games. Like it took me a matter of probably 4 years until I had enough games to. I'm still have a 300 gig drive, but I think I'm about to 300 gigs now, and it's taken me a long time to get there. Okay, to see, let me go back to normal. If you don't want to spend that much, a 7200 RPM drive is going to be still really fast. It's not going to be as fast as the Velociraptor, but it's still going to be fairly fast in game load times and everything else. Like a Western Digital Black Drive, one of the fastest you can buy. It has to cost more, but you get more capacity than the Velociraptors. I'm trying to uh, find it. Let's just go with capacity. Stupid thing with hard drive capacity is you could have like this is a 320 gig hard drive, and for $75, and then you could have a terabyte hard drive, which is more than 3 times the capacity, for a matter of $15 more. It's not like it's 3 times the price, and that's where they get you with hard drives. If you want to save $15, you have to cut your capacity by like a third. So it's really stupid. So typically the best priced ones are for performance. The capacity ratio would be about 1 terabyte and the 7200 RPMs. If you're just gonna raw capacity, just get a 5400 RPM because they're slower, but they're also cheaper. But then you can get more space for the size. For instance, this one's a 1 terabyte for $90, and then you can get a 2 terabyte for $30 more. So you're talking, and no, this actually no. $10 more because that's a $20 off coupon right now. So it's $10 more. You can double your capacity, but it's just a slower drive. But if you're just putting a lot of HD video on this drive, just to store, then that's a better option for sure, and stuff like that. Like I said, go to probably 1 terabyte is your best option if you want a drive like that. I'm gonna explain if I can find a hybrid drive. I'm just gonna search it actually. Hybrid. Okay. Seagate Momentus, or the Seagate, I think is the only company that really makes hybrid drives. Typically, right here. I thought they used to have 3.5-inch drives. Maybe not anymore. 2.5-inch works as well in a desktop computer. It doesn't matter. These will work in a laptop. The point of a hybrid drive is that it has a small SSD built into it that can cache part of your programs. Your most used stuff will go on the SSD, which is really fast, and then your stuff you don't use as much will be on the regular hard drive, which thus dramatically increases your performance. I had this 500 gigabyte one here on my laptop. Not as fast as an SSD, but if you only have one hard drive bay, then it's considerably faster than a normal hard drive, and it was well worth the price to me, especially now it's $70 for a 500 gig one. It's a pretty good price for a hybrid drive for a laptop. And such like that. Another myth, okay. SATA 3 means 3 gigabits, up to 3 gigabits per, or actually no, 300 megabits per second, or megabytes. I always get those mixed up too. I think it's actually megabytes. 300 megabytes per second is what SATA 3 does. And SATA 6 does up to 600 megabytes per second. To say the least, if you don't have an SSD, that's just a market employee at SATA 6 typically, unless it's a newer drive. Like this one's the newer drives, so it's probably a little bit faster than this one, but for the price difference, it's definitely not worth this one probably. Now the 750 gig is going to be noticeably faster than the 500 one. That's typically how it works. Usually the larger capacity drives are also faster. It's typically how it works. But SATA 6, you're not going to get anywhere close to even 300 megabytes per second on this drive. I mean, maybe a small chance because of the SSD burst, but you're not going to see any drastic performance difference from SATA 3 to SATA 6 on typical mechanical hard drives. Now, when you go to an SSD, you could see a very big difference, like up to double the performance from for an SSD standpoint, because it actually allows double the data bandwidth. Okay, now that we're off hybrid drives, go back here. Just look at see, out of 2 terabytes, 1.5 terabytes, and 1 terabytes. The drive I have is a Samsung F3. That's a really nice drive. It goes on sale sometimes. I got mine for $50, but because hard drive prices went through the roof last fall because of the floods in Asia, I think Taiwan, more specifically, I think, not 100% sure, that all these companies got hit by those, and hard drive prices went through the roof. Like, at first they tripled, now they're about just on the double the original price they used to be. So it kind of sucks for the consumer, but I think maybe by the end of this year, beginning of next year, they should be back to how they used to be. But let's see. Like the blue drive isn't. If you just want a drive to get the job done, a blue drive is good. But I think this F3 is probably faster. Western Digital has a name for themselves, I think as a reliable drive company. At least that's what I've felt like I've seen. I might not be right. But like I said, the F3 drive gave me no problems. Some people said it's been dead on arrival, but there's a chance with that in any hard drive you buy. So just don't. I think a person has a much better chance of reviewing something bad if something's happened to it. If it's been good, usually people are too lazy to review something if it's been good. But if it's been bad, they're like, oh, I don't want someone else buying this because it died on me, and they think it could be a fluke, and that they had a bad hard drive and the next person got a good one. So read all the reviews, and some people rate something bad and don't even own it. So make sure you read the bad reviews and see what they say, and then look at the good reviews as well and compare. And like all this, it's other personal preference, like what speed you need, and I said 5400 slower, 7200 is faster. It's kind of common sense. 10,000 is faster than 7200. And also you have to look at. I'm gonna go right here, and there's a little bit more technical specs on these hard drives. Like yeah, the 1 terabyte. Let's see where. Here, tech specs. You have your model numbers and that stuff. SATA interface, SATA 3 gigabits, which is backwards compatible with SATA 6. If you have a SATA 6 motherboard. 7200 RPMs is how fast the disk spins. Your cache, I think most actually typically have 32 megabytes now. The larger hard drives have 64, but I don't think that's really something you should really worry about for performance-wise. Average seek time is a big deal. There's benchmark sites you can look at for these hard drives. That's why I picked the F3, because it was one of the fastest 7200 RPM drives, and actually one of the cheapest at the same time. The seek time is the time the ARM takes to get to your data, so it has to physically move an ARM, which is why regular hard drives are slower than SSD. And SSD is the speed of light, so it's instant. And an ARM is limited to milliseconds to move to each data point, so it can be like 100 times slower in cases easily. Then you have latency, which matters too. Like the lower the numbers here, the faster. That's why a 10,000 RPM drive has at least typically like 2 milliseconds faster, which it's only 2 milliseconds, but it can make a large difference in performance when you're talking like accessing hundreds and hundreds of files all within a short period of time. You add that up, there's many seconds saved like every minute of speed, so it adds up to like over a day you could save like 10 minutes of your time, or I don't know, more easily. Um, but that's an option. And warranty, you just have a 1 year standard. I think hard drives used to be like a 3 year warranty. I know Western Digital, I think, has 3 year warranties, maybe. Unless they've changed that after the floods, that's very possible. Let's see. And it really sucks if you have your hard drive crash because there's all your data. That's why I have a ton of backups of my data, because I'm really paranoid about that stuff. With 2 years, I think they used to be like more. I think they're even the Raptor drives. If you go back even more to 10,000 RPMs here, like this Raptor, I want to say has a longer warranty, because they expect it to last longer because they put higher quality components and it costs more. So yeah, 5 year warranty. So if this dies within 5 years, they will replace it with some hard drive. Not necessarily this one, because this one might not be around in 5 years. So who knows? That's I think all I have to say about hard drive. Let's get on the SSDs here. It's in a separate section than hard drives because there are different. SSDs, typically what I do, I think it's best to have an SSD and a hard drive in your computer for this point in time. When that's SSDs, I think, are getting down. They're getting down less than $1 a gig now, $1 a gigabyte. Since hard drives are like cents per gigabyte, like 10 cents per gigabyte. Yeah, it's 10 times cheaper for your capacity, but you're also like 10 times slower. So you gotta consider: do you want speed, or do you want capacity? Or you can get the best of both worlds with an internal SSD here and get both. SSDs are typically, no matter what SSD you get, it's going to be faster than a typical hard drive. Next to the very lowest end slow ones, like that cost like $30 or something stupid. Like the old ones could be possibly a little bit slower, but you won't get that anymore. See, this one's $75, up to 500 megabyte read speed. The other, like typical hard drives, only get like around 100, and that's just read. That's your random access time. These 4K random reads and writes. That's what gives you, like, a regular hard drive might be less than 1,000 on this, I think. Something like that. This has 45,000, so it might not be 45 times faster, like, in real world use, but it's going to be very noticeably faster than a normal hard drive, which is why I'd recommend, for kind of future-proof, the Crucial has got a name for being a really reliable drive. That's what I put on my parents' computer. And I think this new Samsung one here has been very reliable as well, and it's been actually quite a bit cheaper, it seems, because Samsung makes all their parts in-house, which means they have full control and full pricing. Crucial does not. They buy parts from other companies, so it costs a little bit more. I would go by best rating more so than, unless you're really, some of the fastest drives don't have as good of ratings, but that was just a fluke. You'll have to look out. I have this HyperX right here. I got it for like $89. Like, I got a really good deal on it. And it's one of the fastest ones out when I bought it. Now they have new ones out which are faster, of course, but cost more. It's not much to say about SSDs next to they're really fast. They use a lot less power, like 0.13 watts. It uses less than a watt of power to run. Like hard drives can use like Raptors can use like over 5 watts, I think, when they're actually being used. So they use a lot more power. Raptors, or like mechanical hard drives, are like 3 watts, I think a normal hard drive uses, or something or more. I mean, they use more power. These run cooler, especially for a laptop. It can extend your battery life some. Let's see. Like I said, go to best rating. That's probably your best option. Like any of these, down to any of these that I'm scrolling through, even the whole first page, totally acceptable. And that you should find something that's cheap and that's really fast in that first page. You can find really good deals, like I said, through Slick Deals. They have SSD deals all the time. Like you can get this 128 gig Samsung drive for $90 versus 105 here normally. I think that's just a normal price. I mean, don't get wrong, this is a really good drive, but the Samsung I think is a little bit faster than this drive here. But it's quite hard to see a huge difference, actually, in performance. I see a noticeable difference between my slower Kingston and my one computer to the faster Kingston I just showed you. There is a noticeable difference, which you also, I think, pay a good bit more money if I didn't get mine on sale for the faster Kingston, but it might be worth it to you, or it might not. It's definitely worth it to me. In the long run, and it's not even on SATA 6. Mine's on SATA 3, and it's being restricted on its speed. And so, I don't even get the fastest speed it's capable, and it's really darn fast. It's really fast. Like, I can't even check my email, like, before my computer's booted up. Like, it's like so fast. It's like when I first got it, it was almost like it was too fast. Like my computer is on, it's like crap. It's like I can use that computer now, even though I'm on my other computer, and it's been up for like 30 seconds already. And I haven't even used it yet. It's funny. But it's very highly recommended to get an SSD if you're building a new computer or even upgrading. It's the I think best upgrade you can possibly do if you have a computer within the last 5 years. It's probably one of the best upgrades you can possibly do. So to get from that, it's about all I can say is look at reviews again. Any SSD is good if you don't really know about it. If you know about them, then you probably know what SSD is better. But just to make it generalized, almost every SSD here is really good. Like really fast, and it's going to be a blazingly fast difference, night and day difference compared to a normal hard drive in your computer. Typically, like I said, operating system, most users, 64 gigabyte in size capacity is fine, and 128 is what I needed because I had more programs to install. But you have to learn. I might be able to show that in a video as well later on. You have to learn how to separate, readjust like your My Documents, My Music, My Videos, all those folders. You can relocate to a different hard drive, your like larger capacity hard drive, and then it won't take up any space on the SSD and stuff like that. And there are things like to extend the life of your SSD. The new version, you don't want an SSD on Windows XP. You definitely want Windows 7 at least, or Windows 8 when that's if that's here when you're watching this video. And definitely will want those operating systems because there's a thing called TRIM, support TRIM, and it can dramatically increase the life of your SSD and keep the speed up. And they had problems when the SSDs first came out with that stuff, but now everything seems to be fairly reliable. I think that's all I have to say now. Like I said, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those below like any other video. I want to see more of these type of videos and more tips and how-tos. Please subscribe up above. And thanks for watching. And continue on to the next video about the GPU.